that don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful co-host.
Hey, JD.
Melissa, who's had a pretty hectic morning, but we're back and ready to go. How are you, Melissa?
Great. Let's do it.
Let's do it. That means we're in a hurry. We got a timeline. All right, guys. Well, today we're super excited to introduce Andrew Postell. And Andrew has a lot of investing experience, 20 plus years of real estate investing. He's also vice president of mortgage lending at Guaranteed Rate. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit, but really what we're interested in is his story and the real estate investing knowledge that he's picked up over the last 2 decades. Andrew, thank you so much for being on our show. Thanks for bearing with us.
This is my honor. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Awesome. Well, why don't we just get started? If you could give us a rundown, give our listeners kind of your story, where you started, where you're at, and we'll just kind of take the conversation from there.
Oh, sure. No problem. Thanks again for having me. Yeah, I'm a 20-year real estate investor. I invested during 9/11. I invested during the housing crisis. I'm investing right now. This is my third economic downturn, whatever you want to call it. But real estate has changed my life. When I was a young kid, my family was very loving. We did fine. We were a regular family, but we moved all the time. We moved every year, it seemed like. I think when I was 18, I had actually moved 18 different times. And as we moved, my father would sell the home we lived in, or sometimes we would rent, and he'd sell the home to buy the new one. My uncle, though, he moved a lot too, but he kept his homes. He lived a little bit differently than we did.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So when I was getting started, I said, okay, well, if I'm going to try to do something, I'm going to try to do that. There was no internet. There were no podcasts. There weren't these things that you could learn from. You just had to go, I guess I'll emulate that. So I started out trying to be like my uncle. I just lived in a home and kept my properties. I house hacked, even though we didn't call it house hacking then. I purchased a home to live in. I kept it, purchased another home to live in it, kept it. Through the years, I now have upgraded my homes, and now I have a portfolio of homes, and they all are renting very well. And the thing that really got me catapulted up to the higher level was learning from groups like this. Mm-hmm. Before, I didn't know we couldn't find these groups. I actually found a multifamily investment company. I was like, hey, talk to me. What's your company like? Oh, it takes $250,000 to get in started. And this is what it was. Before the information age, it was a very much like you had to have money to even make it. And now we can learn how to do it and be effective. And hopefully you can be more effective than I was when I got started. I'm still a millionaire from it, so I'm very fine. But if I could do it over again, I would do it just like this, learning from a platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're big believers of that too. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole reason we started the podcast was so that we could share some of the things that we are learning in our masterminds that we're paying, thousands and thousands of dollars to the environments that we're in all the time, is stuff that unless you know how to ask the questions, you don't know how to ask the questions, and you don't know how to find people that can answer it. And that's one of the reasons why we love having guests like you on that have lived and walked the walk, so to speak. And so we're really excited to hear more about your business and hopefully drop a few nuggets of really, really, high class investor knowledge on the team. So what does your business look like today on the real estate investing side?
Yeah, so I live and work in Texas. Mm-hmm. So before I lived and worked in Texas, I worked in New York City and lived in New York City. At that time, I was an out-of-state investor in Florida. I chose Florida because I had a centralized network of trusted people that I relied on to look after my properties. Once I moved to Texas, well, Texas was a lot more affordable than New York. And even though I had a good platform of properties in Florida, I've slowly sold them off to invest in a local place for me. Here in Texas, we have a great market for rental properties. All of my properties are single family homes, 12-month leases. It's very boring, but it works. So I still keep my regular job intact, and I keep real estate on the side. I only do like 2, maybe 3 properties a year, but doing 2 or 3 properties a year over several years, you're going to be fine. It's just fine.
It adds up pretty quick. And then maintaining your W-2 job allows you to qualify for more loans. And I'm sure, once you get up to 20 or 30 properties, okay, maybe you're not qualifying for the conventional loans, but then you open yourself up to all the commercial lending packages, portfolio loans, all of that kind of stuff. But maintaining that W-2 income makes you look like a more qualified borrower across the board. So I'm sure that's a benefit. And if you don't hate your job, there's no reason for you to get out of it. So
yeah, I have two things with my job. Not only do I like doing it, but it supports me being an investor. As a loan officer, I learn about loans. Imagine if you were a property appraiser or a home inspector. You can do jobs that you have a standard job that support what you do as an investor too. And I'm kind of cheesing out on it a little bit in that way as well.
Sure, absolutely. You're going to hear about the best loans, the best programs, the point buy downs, all that kind of stuff. Well, let me ask you this, interest rates have gone up significantly starting, for us, it was roughly April. And then we just had a little bit dip where they went back down a little bit, I think last week. But are you still buying properties in this higher interest rate environment?
Oh, yes. Okay. This is the lessons learned from decades ago, right? So I invested during 9/11, invested during the housing crisis. The lessons I learned during those environments helped me be successful today. So what happens when lots of people get uncertain and feel challenged and they have risk? Oh, they don't want to buy. That's less competition for us. We get better deals in this market. So, hey, Andrew, I'm looking at the numbers. I don't see cash flow. Great. Make your offer lower then. If you're expecting $200 of cash flow a month, I don't know, that's $2,400 a year. Make your offer $5,000 less. Oh, the person doesn't want to play? Well, you have the leverage now. There's not a lot of competition. Remember when rates were in the 2s and 3s? What you had to do to buy a property? It was crazy. The power right now is in the buyer. This is where we make our money as an investor. That's why I'm investing now.
Sure. And I think we agree with you completely on that. We are looking still, we're never going to purchase a property that doesn't make sense, doesn't fit our criteria. Right. But we are looking at and putting in a lot of offers that are, especially less than list price. All of our off-market stuff, we're putting in good offers on them. If we're using conventional loans, we can always refinance if the rates change.
Oh, he wants me to take over now.
No problem. So your philosophy is exactly correct. I only got good at this by learning from other people. So Warren Buffett says you can't time the market. He doesn't time the market. He buys on value. And that's what we do as an investor. We don't pay over market price for homes. We never have. That's not a success story. We buy under market price and we either increase the value or we create income from it. So yeah, make offers. You can't be successful unless, and guess what? The offer, you can make it whatever you want it to be. It's your offer. It's not your fault somebody is asking too much for a property.
It's funny you say that because they often act like it's my fault that they're overpriced their property. But that's just part of the game. So let me ask you, are you buying your properties on market? Are you buying off market? Are you buying, how are you sourcing your deals?
Yeah, the vast majority of my transactions now are off-market properties. I am into the place in my career, though, where every 5 years I unload properties. So after 5 years of appreciation, I have enough equity. I sell one property to buy two. In those scenarios, I would consider an on-market property, but I'm still buying off-market using the BRRRR method for long-term rentals. That's the vast majority of what I do.
And when you're selling off those properties, are you looking at it from a 1031 exchange, or are you doing some other sort of creative?
So like I still to this day buy my primary home with the intent that it will be a rental property in the future of some nature. So one of the homes I'm selling this year is my primary home that I lived in 2 years ago. So I'm in the window for tax-free money. I lived in it 2 out of the past 5. So I rented it for 2. I sell it this year, tax-free money. That is one home I'm selling to buy 2 because it's tax-free. Another home that's slated, it's on the schedule to be sold later this year. That one I would be using a 1031. And that's why I have to buy on the MLS in those scenarios, because I'm under a time crunch. You know, off-market stuff, I can play here and there. Don't buy this month, that month. But when I have a 1031, I'm under the crunch for the time frame. I usually buy on the MLS.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And because the worst thing that could happen is you want to do a 1031 exchange and then you back yourself in the corner and can't. You end up paying a bunch of taxes. You definitely don't want to do that. All right. So when we're talking about your off-market deals, are you sourcing those from wholesalers or realtor pocket listings? Are you doing your own marketing? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I have a regular W-2 job, right? So my regular job is full-time. It's more than full-time. It's crazy how busy it gets sometimes. I have to rely on wholesalers. That's the primary way that I find deals. But the primary way I find wholesalers is I go to local real estate groups and meet them. So large wholesalers, I've worked with them. Usually if it's a really great deal, they keep it.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. I get the marginal deals and I make it work. But if you're a young, new wholesaler, you're just getting started, you don't have the assets or maybe even sometimes the knowledge to keep a deal. That's the people I really want to know. And that's why I network in groups, in real estate investor clubs, to meet new wholesalers as well. So it's part of my ongoing thing, but absolutely I rely on wholesalers.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a buyer, what are you looking for in a wholesaler to be able to determine whether or not you're going to work with them? How are they presenting the deals? A lot of our investors that we talk to say, hey, I don't want to work with a wholesaler that's going to inflate the after repair values or the rents or minimize the repairs. What are you looking for when they send that property across your desk? How do you judge whether, one, you want to work with that wholesaler, or two, whether it's a good property?
Well, okay. The way I'd look at it is I don't trust any of their numbers. None of them. Not because their rehab numbers are going to be right or wrong, but maybe I have a different vision of the rehab.
Sure.
Okay, so rehab, after repair value, everything, I do the math myself. So I'll work with anybody. I don't budge from my numbers, though. And there's been plenty of times, man, where I've been the only person to even off-run a home because they were so off on their numbers that it scared everybody away. Make that offer. Still make it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And matter of fact, we just had the real estate investment group in Panama City Beach that we host last week. And that's exactly what I told them is if you want to be on the wholesalers front, first 5 people that they call, what you need to be doing is putting your offer in every single time a property comes across an email or text or whatever. Put the offer in, because there's a lot of times where nobody offers because they're afraid of the price. They don't realize that it's a business. My job is to get as much money as possible. Your job's to pay the least amount of money possible. They don't want to thin the wholesaler. It's just if you put the offer in at the number that makes sense to you, one, it lets the wholesaler know if maybe they did price it too high, and then two, if it's been a week and a half and I haven't got any other offers, then you're the only one that showed any interest. I'm coming back to you and saying, hey, man, maybe your number doesn't work for me, but we need, $3,000. If we can meet in the middle, $1,500, let's get it done. You get a deal. we still make some money. The home still gets sold for the original seller. Everyone wins in that. But when you're not putting those offers in, you really just drop to the bottom of our list. I don't take my time to call you because you're not giving me any information to work with. So
yeah, there's been instances where I've seen the HUD, right? So I see the settlement statement. There were 2 wholesalers on some of these deals. And on some of these transactions where I'm like, hey, man, I appreciate your position. Try to go back to the owner and see if you can renegotiate. Because if you're talking to me, that means I'm the best offer, So if I'm the best, go back and see if you can renegotiate. And we got the deal done. And then on the HUD, I see, oh, there was a second wholesaler. Oh, that second wholesaler only made $1,000. So I wonder if they went back and renegotiated with the middle person. Sometimes a small wholesaler will lean on a very large one to promote their deal. Just make offers. I make about 100 offers a year. It's a lot of work. I know I talk about this in an easy way because I do it well, but it's still a lot of work. I don't want to be delusional about it. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
But the more offers you make, the easier it is, the better your systems are, your own spreadsheets, all of that kind of stuff. The more you focus, and that's what one of the things I like that what you said is you have a central area and you move that central area to Texas because you're local. But that's the way we look at it too. The more time you spend analyzing, putting offers in a certain market or a certain area or even a certain neighborhood, the better and easier it becomes for you to write those. So, it might take you 2 days to evaluate a property your first time in a market, but by the time you're putting in 100 offers a year, you're able to do it in 20-30 minutes. Maybe if you know it really good, you can make the offer sight unseen without even having to question anything in about 5 minutes. So I do think that that's a huge tip, is just work the numbers. And the other thing is nobody can do that work for you. We see a lot of people that come in new trying to make offers, especially on the retail side, and they want somebody else to do all the work and tell them if it's a good deal. I think that that's probably a bad idea. Until you get a system established, you got to do the work.
There's a local guru here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who, if you're a new student, your first homework, you have to make 10 half-price offers. 10, or you're not going to the next stage. And he does it for lots of reasons, right? It gets you used to making offers and getting yelled at sometimes. But also, if you have fear, like, we can teach you all the systems and numbers. We can't teach you how not to be fearful. This does have risk to it, but so does doing nothing. Doing nothing has a risk to it as well. So even though there's things that are risky in what we do, it's worth the risk. It's long term. This is not a get rich quick scheme. This is real estate. Long term, it will work out, but you can't buy your first home unless you make an offer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't really, we talk to a lot of new guys. I don't really know what the fear is of having that conversation. It's new, so there's that fear. But just having a conversation with somebody on the phone doesn't commit you to anything. You're just finding out information, seeing if it works for you. And so many people are afraid to pick the phone up.
Yeah, but people are fearful of rejection. That's the biggest fear, I think. It's rejection.
They're fearful of a lot of things. Yeah. Rejection is a very strong fear factor. If you look at numbers, we can look at this. The number of people who have 2 homes in America, just 2. There's only 4% of Americans have 2. Why don't more people do it? There's lots of reasons why. But whatever the reason is, we make it successful and work because others don't do it. If everybody did it, there wouldn't be an upside. There wouldn't be an upswing. So if you think that this is your calling, it is. If you've got the bug in you already, it is your calling. You just got to get out there and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. Now, I guess when you've been buying 2-3 homes a year every year for the last 20 years, you got this huge portfolio. Are you able to manage that all yourself? Are you partnering out with property management companies? What does that look like for your business?
Yep. Early on in my career, I absolutely screened my tenants and managed it myself. When you only have 1 or 2 properties, I felt good doing it. It taught me a lot of things. It taught me what to ask my property manager. At this point in my career, I have to rely on my property manager. And when you get to such a large place, I also ask my property manager, is this a good town? Would you manage in this area of the city? And if they say no, I'm not buying. So not only do I rely on them to manage my property, but I also rely on them for their expertise of the market.
Yeah, we should have done that on one of our early purchases, because that would have saved us a lot of money if we would have done that. That's really good advice that you overlook.
Yeah, and not a lot of people are saying that. Anytime you're going out and you're using a professional, if you're not willing to listen to their advice and really take heed to it, then you probably shouldn't be using them for whatever service they're providing. Whether that's a lawyer, a realtor, a CPA, property manager. But a lot of people think they know better or think it won't happen to them. And we fell right into that category a time or two. So if we're trying to tell new investors, like number one, number two, best piece of advice on either how to get started or what helps you the most, what would you tell them?
So for me, in my opinion, if you're brand new, you haven't bought a property ever, let's start with your own primary home. We don't know if you're going to like real estate. Maybe owning a house is not for you. The best way to do it is to find your own home first. Let's think about something as an investment, maybe house hack it, maybe a duplex, maybe something with an accessory dwelling unit, to see if this is in your temperament. And not only when you buy your own primary home, you have a less down payment, it's a lower interest rate, there's less risk involved, so you don't, if there is some repair, it's usually minor, so you can learn. I don't want you to take a fire-burned house as your first property. That's a huge undertaking, even for somebody like me. So let's start small, take it as a nice step, and then you can know if this is going to be for you or not. That's if you're brand new.
That's good advice.
Yeah, definitely. Limit your mistakes or the ability for your mistakes to happen to small mistakes instead of huge, bankrupt you using grandma's money, lose all that. You don't want to mess with any of that. Just little learning to build you up. Awesome. Well, Andrew, if our listeners wanted to find out more about you or connect with you on social media, where can we send them? Obviously you have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and I'm sure a lot of people could benefit from hearing more from you.
Oh, well, thanks for even saying that. Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, every day I broadcast a 2-minute or less video. It's called the Drew 2. It's on Instagram and Facebook. You can follow me on these social medias. If you just Google Andrew Postell, I'm a loan officer. You can email me, chat with me. There's tons of things that I do. Most of the time, my phone call is just, hey, how do I structure this? You can call me for an interest rate, but I'm here to help in any way that I can. At this stage in my career, I wish there was somebody there to help me when I was younger, getting started too. So anything I can do to assist, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.